Commander Elias Thorne gripped the cold metal wall of the Europa research station as the rumbling of explosions shook the entire base. Outside the thick observation windows, swarms of alien drones tore through the icy landscape, relentless and merciless. The Europa colony, humanity's northernmost outpost on Jupiter's moon, was falling. Inside the crumbling lab, Elias knelt beside Dr. Lyra Kale, his partner, and the station's leading scientist. Her breathing was shallow, labored, every breath a struggle against the cold, the damage, and the creeping numbness of death. Blood stained her once pristine research coat, a stark contrast to the pale blue glow of the bioluminescent panels around them. "Hold on, Lyra," Elias whispered, voice rough with despair. "Help is coming, I promise." But Lyra's eyes, those brilliant, determined eyes he'd come to love, held only calm acceptance. She reached out a trembling hand, brushing Elias's cheek, leaving a trace of warmth that cut through his numbness. "There's no time," she said softly, voice barely more than a breath. "The upload, the archive, it must live. You have to make sure it gets there." Elias clenched his jaw, fighting back the tears he refused to shed. The archive, humanity's last hope to preserve knowledge and culture in the face of annihilation, was encoded in a quantum transmission locked inside the station's core. Lyra had sacrificed herself to initiate the upload, buying the colony's survivors a chance. The station trembled violently. A loud crash echoed nearby as debris collapsed under bombardment. Outside, the horizon flickered with strange, shifting lights and unnatural interference in the storm of destruction. Elias gritted his teeth and pulled Lyra closer, cradling her, fragile form as her eyes fluttered closed. "I held you as you died, Lyra," he whispered, voice breaking. "I'll carry your memory to the stars." The world seemed to fade. Time slowed as Elias felt the last flicker of her heartbeat beneath his palm. The upload was almost complete. A soft hum vibrated through the station's core, a faint glow in the dark. And then, silence. When the emergency evacuation alarms blared, Elias had no choice but to leave her behind. The cold air of the external corridors bit at his skin as he raced toward the escape pods. The colony, their home, was lost. Years later, the story of Europa's fall became legend, an example of humanity's fragility and fierce resilience. Elias survived, his name etched in history as a hero who never forgot. The quantum archive was transmitted safely, but the woman who made it possible was gone, or so everyone thought. But in the cold vacuum of space, something stirred. Beneath layers of frozen ice on Europa's surface, hidden from all eyes, a faint pulse resonated, a whisper of life untouched by time. A signal too precise to be natural, the faintest trace of a heartbeat, steady and waiting. Elias, now a decorated commander, haunted by memories of the past, did not know that the final moment with Lyra was only the beginning of a story that would span centuries, and that somewhere beneath the ice, in a place where time itself bent and twisted, the impossible was quietly awakening. 200 years had passed since the fall of Europa, yet the memory of that icy moon and the woman Elias Thorne had loved refused to fade. Humanity had grown, expanded beyond the solar system, forging alliances with alien civilizations and colonizing distant worlds. Peace reigned, fragile but promising. Elias himself had become a figure of legend. His life extended by cutting-edge regeneration treatments and neural enhancements. He carried the weight of centuries in his eyes, a man out of time. His heart, however, remained tethered to the past, a past where Lyra Kale had sacrificed everything. Now, an ambassador for the United Terran Coalition, Elias traveled through the outer systems, spreading unity and remembering the lost. But nothing prepared him for the message that would shatter his routine. A secure, encrypted transmission from a remote research station orbiting Europa's moon. The message was brief, a distress call embedded with data packets of unknown origin. It spoke of a discovery beneath Europa's ice, a stasis pod containing a human body, perfectly preserved and biologically alive. Elias felt a cold shock ripple through him. Could it be? After 2 centuries, was it possible Lyra had survived somehow? He was summoned immediately to the orbital station. Stepping into the sterile lab, Elias was greeted by a team of scientists whose excitement was barely contained. In a cryogenic chamber bathed in soft blue light lay a woman who could have been plucked from his memories. Lyra Kyle. Her features were unchanged, timeless, serene, and unmistakably real. The lead researcher, Dr. Hira Voss, explained the baffling findings. The stasis pod had been buried under Europa's ice, uncovered during a recent excavation mission. The body inside exhibited no signs of decay or aging. Neural scans indicated intact brain activity, yet Lyra showed no signs of awareness. Elias stepped closer, unable to believe his eyes. The woman who had been gone forever was here, untouched by time's relentless march. Commander Thorne, Dr. Voss said cautiously, we have run every test imaginable. This defies all known science. There's no record of a stasis pod being deployed from Europa during the attack. The technology preserving her is unlike anything humanity or its allies have ever encountered. Lyra's eyes slowly opened, revealing confusion and fear. For a moment the room was silent. Breath held in awe. She looked at Elias as if seeing a ghost, then tried to speak, but only a faint whisper escaped. Elias knelt by the pod. Lyra, it's me. I'm here. But the woman who had returned was a stranger. Her memories were locked away, fragmented and unreachable. She was alive, yet lost in time. The room's tension shattered as alarms blared suddenly. An intrusion detected in the station's outer hull. Scientists scrambled, but Elias remained focused on Lyra, desperate to find any spark of recognition. Outside, dark ships of unknown origin hovered, their intentions unclear but threatening. The moment was fragile, humanity's future and past hanging by a thread. Elias's mind raced. How had Lyra survived? What force had preserved her? And why now, after 2 centuries of silence, had she returned? As the station braced for an uncertain battle, Elias made a silent vow. He would uncover the truth, no matter what dangers lay ahead. The woman he had held as she died was back, and together, they would face a future none could have predicted. Lyra's eyes fluttered open, revealing a pale blue that seemed both familiar and distant. Her gaze swept the sterile lab around her, confusion clouding her expression. She blinked, struggling to focus as the flood of bright lights and unfamiliar sounds overwhelmed her senses. Commander Elias Thorne knelt beside the cryogenic chamber, heart pounding. Lyra, can you hear me? It's Elias. She turned her head slowly, locking eyes with him. For a fleeting second, recognition sparked, a flicker of something buried deep, but then it vanished, replaced by uncertainty and fear. I don't understand, she whispered, voice fragile like a shattered glass. Where am I? What happened? The scientists exchanged anxious glances. Dr. Hira Voss stepped forward. You've been in stasis for over 2 centuries. Europa was attacked and you were recovered recently. We brought you back. Lyra's brow furrowed as if trying to piece together a shattered puzzle. Her mind was a blank slate, memories erased, or hidden behind a wall she could not breach. She tried to recall Elias, their last moments, but the images twisted and dissolved into nothingness. Suddenly the station's alarms blared, a harsh, urgent sound that cut through the fragile calm. The outer hull registered an unauthorized breach. Security breach, a technician shouted. Unknown entity attempting to access the core systems. Elias stood, instinct sharpening his senses. Everyone, get to defensive positions. Lyra, stay close. As the team scrambled, the lights flickered. Shadows moved in the corridors. The station's automated defenses activated, but the attackers were not human. They were advanced AI drones, remnants of the alien force that had struck Europa long ago, now reactivated by some unknown trigger. Elias grabbed a pulse rifle from a weapons locker. We have to protect the station and the archive, he ordered. They can't get to Lyra, or what she carries. Lyra, despite her confusion, instinctively reached for Elias's arm. "I don't know who I am," she said quietly, "but I know you." His heart clenched. "We'll figure this out. Together." The drones advanced, metallic limbs clanking, eyes glowing with cold blue light. Elias and the security team fought back, the corridors echoing with bursts of plasma, fire, and the shouts of the crew. Amid the chaos, Lyra experienced sharp flashes, visions of star systems collapsing, strange creatures watching from the darkness, and a swirling vortex of light twisting space and time. The images left her breathless and disoriented. "Lyra, focus!" Elias shouted as he covered her retreat. "These things are hunting you for a reason." She gripped his hand tightly, the only anchor in the storm. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Then fight with me," he said firmly. "Because whatever you are, you belong here, with us." The battle reached the station's core, where the quantum archive hummed silently. The drones tried to access the data but were repelled by a shield that Elias's team had barely managed to activate. In the aftermath, the station's systems stabilized, but the danger was far from over. Elias knew that Lyra's presence had awakened something far older and more dangerous than anyone understood. As the crew tended to their wounds and repaired the damage, Elias made a decision. Lyra's recovery wasn't just a miracle, it was the beginning of a new mission. To uncover who she really was, what secrets she carried, and why she had returned, untouched by time. Because in this new era, the past and future were colliding, and humanity's fate would depend on the answers hidden within Lyra's fractured mind. The laboratory buzzed with uneasy energy. Lyra sat quietly, still fragile but slowly regaining strength, while Elias paced nearby, restless and deep in thought. The questions hanging in the air were heavier than the thick metallic walls around them. Dr. Hiravos entered the room, clutching a datapad. "Commander Thorne, you need to see this." The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of encrypted files recovered from Europa's ancient servers, long buried and thought destroyed. Among the fragments was a name that sent a chill through Elias's spine. The Seraphim. They were an alien race, Dr. Voss explained, voice low. Legendary manipulators of time and reality, thought extinct for millennia, but it appears they left behind technology, and more importantly, a plan involving your partner, Lyra. Elias stared at the images. Schematics of devices capable of bending time itself. Records of a secret initiative called Project Aegis, where humanity had partnered with the Seraphim in a desperate bid to safeguard their future knowledge. Lyra's presence wasn't accidental. She wasn't just preserved, Dr. Voss said. She was altered, embedded with a temporal seed designed to awaken when humanity reached a critical moment, a failsafe against extinction. Lyra absorbed the words silently, a strange calm washing over her. "I'm a key," she murmured. "Not just a scientist, something more." Suddenly, the station's AI system flickered. An alert blinked ominously across every screen. Temporal disturbances were increasing, unexplained warps in space-time rippling through nearby star systems. Strange anomalies were reported across the colonies. Time loops, vanished ships, altered histories. "The moment of awakening is destabilizing reality itself," Elias said grimly. "Her return has broken the balance." Dr. Voss looked at him. "The Seraphim tech requires completion of a sequence to stabilize time. If it isn't finished soon, the fractures could grow catastrophic." Lyra struggled with the revelation. "But why me? Why was I chosen?" Elias took her hand gently. "Because you're human. Because you survived when no one else could. Because your will can shape the future." Just then, a low hum filled the room. A holographic projection flickered to life, showing a crystalline device pulsing with energy, the Seraphim's temporal lattice. The device's glow resonated faintly with Lyra's own biosignature. "It's calling to me," she said, voice trembling. "Like a song from the stars." Elias knew this was only the beginning. The peaceful life humanity had fought so hard to build was at risk of unraveling. The Seraphim's ancient plan was activating, and with it, new dangers would emerge. Outside the station's reinforced windows, the stars twinkled cold and distant. But beneath that light, unseen forces were stirring. Time itself was a battleground, and Lyra was the prize. Elias made a vow. Whatever it took, he would protect her. Not just for love, but for the survival of all humanity. Because some legacies were written not in stone, but in the echoes of time. The star systems trembled under an invisible storm. As temporal fractures rippled through space, strange reports flooded the United Terran Coalition's command centers. Ships vanishing into thin air, entire colonies caught in endless time loops, and cryptic signals pulsing from the dark void between stars. Something ancient, something hungry, was awakening. Elias stood on the bridge of the Aurora, his flagship, staring into the swirling anomalies mapped on the holodisplay. Lyra, now more herself but still haunted by fragmented memories, stood beside him. "We've identified the source of the attacks," Elias said grimly. "They call themselves the Voidbound, entities that exist beyond time, hunters who erase anomalies like you." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They want to erase me." "Not just you," Elias said. "They want to wipe out anything that threatens the timeline's integrity. You're the first, and they won't stop." The Voidbound were unlike any enemy humanity had faced. Ethereal beings composed of shifting shadows and flickering light, slipping through dimensions and bending reality. Their motives were cold and absolute: preserve time at any cost. Elias ordered the fleet to full alert. They raced to intercept the Voidbound before more colonies disappeared. In a forgotten system on the edge of mapped space, the Aurora's sensors picked up a sudden spike of temporal energy. A distress beacon from a mining colony caught in a time loop, repeating the same day over and over. Elias led a boarding party to investigate. As they descended, the colony's eerie silence was broken only by mechanical echoes and distorted voices. Ghosts trapped in endless repetition. Deep inside the tunnels, they encountered the first Voidbound hunter, a shifting mass of darkness with eyes like stars burning cold. It moved with impossible speed, warping space around it, freezing time in pockets to trap prey. Gunfire erupted. The Voidbound dodged and flickered out of reach, but Lyra activated a strange device, a Seraphim relic that emitted temporal pulses. The hunter shrieked and recoiled, giving the team a brief advantage. "We need more of that tech," Elias said. "It's their weakness." As they pushed deeper, Lyra's visions returned in flashes. Images of the Seraphim civilization, their war against the Voidbound, and a final desperate plan to seal the hunters away. But the technology was incomplete, scattered across the galaxy. Back on the Aurora, Elias convened with coalition leaders. "We must find the remaining Seraphim artifacts before the Voidbound consume what's left of our reality." Lyra's voice was steady but tinged with urgency. "Every moment we wait, time frays further. If we fail, our entire history will be erased." Elias met her gaze. "Then we fight. Not just for us, but for all who came before and all who will come after." The crew prepared for a journey beyond known space, chasing fragments of a civilization lost in time to save the future of humanity. And as the stars flickered uncertainly outside the ship's windows, Elias knew the battle was no longer just about survival. It was about hope, love, and the defiance of time itself. Because in the vastness of the universe, even time can be challenged by the courage to stand against it. The journey to find the remaining Seraphim artifacts tested the limits of the Aurora's crew and Lyra's fragile mind. Each artifact they discovered sparked something inside her, flickers of memories long buried, fragments of a past that defied explanation. Elias watched her closely as they explored the ruins of an ancient world, its surface scarred by battles waged across timelines. Lyra moved hesitantly through the crumbled halls, touching relics that hummed with temporal energy. The moment her fingers brushed the glowing crystal embedded in a stone pedestal, a flood of images crashed into her consciousness. She gasped, collapsing to her knees. Visions of another life, a life before Europa, torn between love and duty, science and sacrifice. Faces she barely remembered, voices whispering secrets of the Seraphim's ancient war against the Voidbound. Elias knelt beside her, steadying her trembling form. "What do you see?" "Fragments," she whispered. "I remember. A warning. The Seraphim were betrayed. Someone close to me turned against us." The revelation sent a chill through Elias. Betrayal within the Seraphim? A hidden enemy manipulating time itself could explain the relentless attacks and the incomplete technology scattered across the galaxy. As Lyra struggled to piece together her shattered past, the Aurora's sensors detected another temporal rift, this one far more unstable. The crew raced toward it, hoping to recover another artifact before the Voidbound did. The rift led them to a derelict ship floating in a temporal eddy, its hull twisted and warped. Inside, they found logs hinting at a secret project, one aimed at creating a weapon to control time itself. Lyra's voice trembled as she read the entries. They tried to harness the Voidbound's power, but it tore their reality apart. Elias frowned. If the Seraphim's technology was corrupted, it could be why time is unraveling now. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. The Voidbound attacked, emerging from the shadows with terrifying speed. Lyra activated the temporal device, sending waves of light that pushed the hunters back, but it was clear they could only hold them off temporarily. In the heat of battle, Elias caught a glimpse of a familiar figure among the Voidbound, a shadowy form that moved with Lyra's grace and precision. A cruel mirror of the woman he loved. "No," he gasped. "That can't be." The Voidbound retreated, leaving behind more questions than answers. Back aboard the Aurora, Lyra's memories remained fractured, but one thing was clear. The greatest threat was not just the Voidbound, but someone or something from her own past, manipulating the strands of time to destroy them all. Elias took her hand, resolve hardening in his eyes. "We'll face whatever comes together, because in a war against time, trust was as fragile and precious as memory itself." The Aurora drifted in silent space, surrounded by the eerie calm that followed every storm. But inside its hull, tensions simmered like a dormant volcano, ready to erupt. Lyra sat alone in the observation lounge, gazing at the distant stars as memories fought to break free from the walls of her mind. Elias entered quietly, his footsteps soft against the polished floor. He settled beside her, his voice low but steady. "You're not alone in this, Lyra." She turned to him, eyes glistening with uncertainty. "Sometimes I wonder if I ever truly lived before. What if the memories I'm fighting to recover aren't mine? What if the person I was, the person I am, is just a ghost?" Elias shook his head. "You're more than a memory or a ghost. You're the key to everything. The past, the present, and the future." Her gaze drifted back to the stars, and the distant hum of the ship seemed to echo the turmoil inside her. As they spoke, Dr. Hira Voss approached with new data, a breakthrough that could change everything. "We've decrypted more of the Seraphim archives," she said, excitement barely contained. "There's a message, a warning, from the Seraphim leader known as Artheron. He speaks of a traitor among them who betrayed the temporal technology to the Voidbound." Elias's eyes narrowed. Could that be the shadow we saw among the Voidbound? Someone who once walked beside Lyra? Dr. Voss nodded gravely. "And there's more. The message hints at a convergence, a moment when all timelines intersect. If the Voidbound sees control then, the entire fabric of reality could unravel." Lyra clenched her fists, the weight of her forgotten past pressing down on her. "If that convergence is coming, we don't have much time." Elias stood, resolve hardening. "Then we need to prepare. We'll gather allies, track down the remaining artifacts, and find a way to stop the Voidbound and this traitor before it's too late." Their plan took them to the heart of the Seraphim's last known stronghold, a hidden dimension accessible only through a temporal gateway. The crew of the Aurora braced themselves as the ship slipped through the shimmering portal, entering a realm where time twisted and flowed like a river caught in a storm. Inside the stronghold, they uncovered remnants of a civilization suspended, Between moments, monuments etched in light, halls filled with echoes of voices long gone. Lyra moved forward, touching a glowing mural that depicted the Seraphim's final battle against the Voidbound. In the artwork, a figure struck a fatal blow, not with weapons, but by breaking the very timelines that held their enemies at bay. The traitor shattered the seal, Lyra said softly, letting the Voidbound through. Suddenly a ripple distorted the air. From the shadows emerged the shadowy figure Elias had glimpsed before. Lyra's dark double, a twisted reflection forged in betrayal and hatred. You should have stayed. Lost in time. The shadow hissed, voice dripping with malice. But now that you're back, I will finish what was started. Elias raised his weapon, ready to defend the woman he loved. This ends here. The shadow laughed, a sound that seemed to echo across multiple realities. You think you can stop fate? Time bends to my will. A fierce battle erupted, a clash not just of weapons but of wills and destinies. Lyra faced her shadow self, confronting the betrayal that had torn her world apart. Elias fought off the void-bound hunters that surged through the dimensional rift. With every strike, the temporal fabric around them threatened to tear, reality flickering like a failing light. In that crucible, Lyra found strength she never knew she had, the power to heal the fractures in her memory and the timelines, entwined with her fate. As the shadow faltered, Elias shouted, "Now, Lyra!" She summoned the temporal lattice's energy, unleashing a brilliant pulse that shattered the shadow into fragments of light. Silence followed, heavy and profound. Elias took Lyra's hand. "We won the battle, but the war is far from over." She nodded, eyes shining with newfound clarity. "But now I know who I am, and I'm ready to fight for the future." Together they stepped forward into the unknown, guardians of time, hope, and humanity's legacy. The battle at the Seraphim Stronghold had left the Aurora and its crew weary but unbroken. The shadow of betrayal had been vanquished, yet the fragile threads of time still trembled with uncertainty. Outside, the stars glimmered like distant promises, but inside, Lyra and Elias faced a future forged by sacrifice, love, and unyielding resolve. In the quiet moments after the storm, Lyra stood before the temporal lattice, a radiant artifact pulsing with steady light. The device hummed softly, as if alive, resonating with the core of her being. It was the key to stabilizing the fractures that threatened all reality. "I never imagined I would find myself here," Lyra whispered, her fingers tracing the lattice's intricate patterns. Held between worlds, between moments, a bridge across centuries. Elias joined her, his gaze full of unwavering support. "You were never alone in that journey. Even when you were lost in time, you carried the hope of everyone who came after." Together, they activated the lattice, sending waves of temporal energy rippling outward. The fractures in space-time began to heal, the distortions slowly fading like ripples in a still pond. But as the light spread, Lyra's thoughts returned to the past. The faces of those she'd loved and lost, the pain of saying goodbye to 100 years ago, and the hope that had kept her alive within the cold embrace of stasis. "I held you as you died, Elias," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "And now here you are, still fighting, still waiting." He took her hands gently. "And I'll keep waiting, for as long as time allows, because some promises are timeless." The station's AI announced a transmission from the Coalition fleet, news of stabilizing timelines, colonies restored, and the Voidbound retreating beyond reach. Humanity's future was no longer a fragile thread, but a tapestry strengthened by courage and unity. Yet, Lyra knew their journey was far from over. The Seraphim's legacy was vast, filled with mysteries yet to be uncovered. The universe held countless timelines, infinite possibilities, and new challenges lurking beyond the horizon. "Where will you go now?" Elias asked. Lyra smiled, a spark of determination lighting her eyes. "Forward, to protect what we've saved, to uncover the truths still hidden in time's folds, and to live the life that was stolen from me. Elias pulled her close. We'll face it all, together. As the Aurora prepared to leave the Seraphim dimension, the temporal lattice's light fused with Lyra's own essence, marking her as a guardian of time. A living testament to humanity's resilience and hope. In the endless sea of stars where time itself bent and wove its endless stories, two souls stood united, defying fate, rewriting destiny, and holding on to a timeless promise. No matter the years, no matter the trials, their bond would endure beyond the reach of time itself. And so, humanity's future was reborn, not as a fragile dream, but as an unbreakable vow. Because sometimes, love is the greatest force in the universe. The force that holds time together,